The lights in their eyes somehow seem brighter as the first of the Nixie dig their claws into the sand and begin dragging themselves upon the shore. I plant my feet firmer. A shrill shriek pierces the air, accompanied by a telltale hiss. I whip my head backwards towards the sound, only to be greeted by coal-black darkness. I cry out desperately into the void where Margaret and Lou stood.
What happened?
There's silence. Then, the best sound possible, Margaret's voice replies, albeit shaky.
There was a prowler
Shakily.
in the woods. I didn't notice it until it was already too close to me. I dropped my lantern when I saw it. The light was enough to drive it away, but now it's gone. Shattered.
I swerve my head back to make sure the shore is still clear before I sprint over to release them from the darkness with my own light. Margaret stares down at the ground dejectedly when I arrive. Lou stands nearby. He avoids eye contact by awkwardly looking away as I approach the two closer.
We can make a small fire for light.
Margaret sniffles loudly.
That may work for now. But what will we do once we're back on the bridges?
We will manage.
I speak firmly, trying to assure her. I can't even guess how effective the attempt was.
Lou, please, clear some space while I gather kindling.
Lou looks startled at suddenly being addressed, but quickly nods and gets to work pushing away the leaves on a small patch of dirt. Margaret moves to help him, though she still looks terribly upset. I feel awful. It wasn't her fault. We dig a few inches down in the sandy soil before making an edging with the rocks to stop the fire from giving us a repeat of last night. I layer the fuel quickly and light a match at the base of the pit. Margaret stokes the fire with Lou looking on. The grass ignites easily and showers the area with enough light to keep anything else that may be lurking in the forest at bay. I release a discreet sigh. We're truly lucky no one was injured or lost during this ordeal. I keep that thought to myself, however. Hearing it would only make Margaret feel worse. You know what would be so easy if the guide stood next to Margaret and we stood next to Lou? We'd both have a light and we'd both be able to walk on the bridge. Or Margaret could walk right behind the guide and Lou could walk in front of Kika? Forgotten her name.
You should go back to your position, Kika.
Oh, there we go, Kika.
It will all be for nothing if we can't make it onto the bridges in the first place.
Right.
I force myself to sound bold.
We're going to get through this.
Margaret attempts to smile at me. Lou views her empty expression for a moment, before turning to move towards a nearby tree. He easily scales it. Absolutely puzzled, Margaret and I watch each movement as he lifts himself into its branches.
I figured there's not much of a chance any Nixie will get a hold of me here. They won't climb.
His voice is light-hearted with an easy confidence.
Well, I won't bother trying to argue with that logic.
Margaret has shaken off some of her sorrow, being in a better mood now. I smile to myself. I'd like to believe that Lou will truly be safe from those predatory creatures this way. With the two of them doing as well as they can be, I cautiously back up to my original position. I return my full focus to the shore. As we feared, this is becoming a pressing situation. More prowlers rose from the waters while my attention was on those two. They've surrounded the guide on both sides. The only way to gain distance from them would be to delve further into the island, yet the guide shows no signs of giving up his position. He remains where he is, resolving to keep all the monsters near him in his sight. I grow more unnerved the longer I watch this. The guide seemed impervious to the dangers of Sinnlos. This is the first case where I can't tell whether he will continue to be fine as always or not. It's a distressing notion. As they creep ever closer, I can't stay silent any longer.
Your safety is most important. Consider retreating.
He doesn't face me, but replies.
I cannot do that. Nixie recognize signs of weakness. Backing away will only increase the odds of them attacking.
I grip my lantern tighter as I swallow hard. What can I do? As if to answer my own question, a thought whispers into my mind and I look down at the lantern in my hand. I could throw it. As long as I don't let it go too far down the shore, it doesn't seem plausible that a Nix could take it. But if I do lose the lantern, especially after Margaret lost hers only moments ago, then I'll just throw the lantern. If we die, we die. I nod firmly to myself, set on the decision. I've seen the guide perform the move right in front of me. I know it isn't an impossible feat. Now something has to be done. I inch my way over to the most advanced group of Nixie. They drift slowly as they attempt to get behind the guide. I'm of no concern to them, at least for the time being. The guide spots me and we make eye contact for a moment. He doesn't say anything and abruptly fixes his gaze elsewhere. It gives me the impression that he's aware of what I'm planning on doing. He's ignoring me because he doesn't want the Nixie to recognize a coming threat. I steady my arms and assume a strong stance. I stop for a heartbeat to take a deep breath. Then I jump forward a small way and toss my lantern toward the group of Nixie on the guide's right side. They're all caught completely off guard, practically wheezing as they scatter and dive back into the depths below. None even attempt to steal the lantern. That is a great relief. The guide seizes this moment to swing his staff at the group of Nixie on his left. The light edging close to them combined with the general chaos disturbs the creatures enough to frighten them. The left group joins the right in retreat. The guide observes the waterline, making certain that they have all crawled back into the water, and then releases a small sigh. He walks over to retrieve my lantern off the sand where it landed, keeping his eyes fixed steadily behind him. Tentatively, I take a few steps towards him. He extends his arm forward, offering my lantern back to me. I've never gotten so close to the guide before. He hasn't allowed it. Being in his presence this way feels unclear. I don't have the words to describe what it turns inside of me. His eyes are expectant, impatient, and I waste no more time. I move to accept it, but I flinch before I can grasp it.
What's wrong?
His face hardens, scrutinizing the unexpected reaction. I banish whatever expression was on my face and take a hold of what's mine.
It is nothing.
He lets it go, though does not make any attempt to leave. I don't believe it is because he's worried about leaving me in the darkness. He still suspects something is wrong. The guide watches closely as I set the lantern aflame once more. Its light gently washes over me and I smile at the sight. This tool I hold is one of the exceedingly few comforts one can have on Sinnlos. I do not wish to part with it again. He is still here, and I begin to worry the guide's intentions to admonish me for what I've done. I may have that emotion show on my face again because he starts to speak.
Keeping a hold of your light is crucial. However, if you took no risk, your only way across could have been lost. It wasn't an empty self-sacrifice.
Okay.
In your position, neither option was correct. Neither was wrong.
Alright. Bastard. Our enigmatic lead nods, and upon finishing up his thought, he returns to his original place. I stare flabbergasted at the guide's back. By chance, I was put in a circumstance that allowed our values to align, but never would I have expected him to acknowledge that I made an acceptable decision. I stopped myself from getting further distracted. Instead, I glanced down at my light and realized the glow looks different. I wince. There is a large crack wickedly curving up the back. I'm thankful that it still works. Still, I fear that it will not hold out until the morning. I look forlornly at the fragile glass surrounding the simple flame. In a way, this event has forcefully reminded me of how fragile my own life is. One slip could mean the end of everything. Regardless, nothing can be done presently, and we've got enough to worry about as it is. I cannot let this consume me. We will continue to resist against this lake. After an untold period of time, the water begins to stir. There's an unusual gurgling, a sound I never thought I would be this relieved to hear. Slowly, creakily, the bridges make their nightly appearance. Sinnlos is an overwhelmingly cruel environment. This island had felt like a safe haven such a short time ago, but that has been twisted to the point where I am grateful for a chance to return to the maze, and we may not even reach that. More Nixie are breaching the water and wrenching themselves onto the sand. The guide signals to all of us. Thanks to his position on the shore, the guide is able to board the bridges without confrontation. For the rest of us, however, the Nixie begin to crowd the opening. It appears they want to get on themselves. We have desperately little time before we'll be cut off from the guide. I look to my lantern. Will this light alone be enough to cause them to disperse? Margaret's shout cuts straight through my thoughts. Oh dang, she has a torch. She's advancing towards me, holding onto a heavy stick with the end set on fire as a makeshift torch. The sight is striking.
It won't last long. We need to
She needs not say any more. The three of us push our way forward. As we advance, Margaret relays her plan.
We'll toss the branch when we get close. The smoke spewing off this thing is making it even harder to see than usual. So you tell me when it's time, Kika.
Oh shit, don't put that on me. Did I save it? I'm gonna save it because don't put that on me, basically. Is there any special things here? No.
I can do that.
I don't think I can do that if you're gonna make me do that. The shore approaches closer and closer, and every single one of the Nixie turn their attention towards our small group. Not now. What? Margaret yelps. The flames leapt in the wind and singed her fingers. On instinct, she lets go of the source of her pain.
All right.
I am.
Margaret answers me, frustration apparent. The fire rapidly eats away at the branch on the ground until there isn't enough safe wood left to pick it up again. Oh no. She stares down at the lost makeshift torch. It is the same look as when she lost her lantern. I harden
I'll
my
have to go
face.
on my own and ward them off. Once they move
Okay,
away.
let's reload,
Two.
because I guess I misunderstood what she meant.
We'll toss the branch when we get close.
How am I
Smoke
supposed to
spewing
know
off this thing is
when
making
we're
it even harder
close?
to see than usual. So you tell me when it's time, Kika.
I can do
Watch
that.
what it says. They turn our attention. Oh, it does just say the shore approaches closer and closer, but I don't know. It's not super clear. After alerting Margaret, she gives her all to hurl the flame ahead of us while avoiding setting the bridge itself on fire. The monsters flee from the torch. A path is clear. We waste not one moment sprinting towards the bridges. With the others near my side, I amble back into the maze. We don't stop until there is a considerable distance between us and the shore. It is there that we encounter the guide. Upon seeing his figure, I hide a sigh of relief. We haven't been left behind. Our arrival doesn't change the guide's empty expression. He doesn't say or do anything, instead allowing all of us to catch our breath. Lou looks as though his legs might fall out from underneath him.
Normally, I wouldn't ever say anyone on these bridges are lucky. But we are.
Margaret chimes in, equally as amazed and exhausted.
I don't know how we managed to do nothing wrong. That feels far more fitting for this journey.
We treasure the moment of triumph for a little more before the guide ends his silence.
We need to start walking. We've already lost much time as it is.
I quickly straighten myself out and mull over our current situation. We start to consider how we are going to travel now that we only have 2 lanterns.
Well, the three of us could walk together. If there's one person close by, I can't imagine it would make much of a difference having another. Furthermore, I believe we've all taken enough risks for each other already for this to not be a problem.
Margaret, her consideration touches me. I smile gratefully at her.
I think it would be fine if we all stayed together.
Okay. We'll do that then. Thank you.
Okay. Other than having a bit of a crowd as opposed to an entirely straight line, our journey moves ahead as it did the night before. The silent night creeps along as we carefully move through the thick fog, making certain not to bump into one another. Then, oh shit, my lantern blinks, it fizzles out. The 3 of us gasp simultaneously, and I hold my breath like time will stop with my breathing. To my great relief, the light flutters back on. The air I'd been anxiously holding in releases as a sigh.
What's going on?
The guide has halted, but does not bother to turn around as he asks the question.
It was nothing.
I watch as he shifts his head back to look at us. The stare he gives is probing and deeply unnerving. He doesn't believe me. I return his gaze, my expression blank. We remain locked in this moment. I can feel his patience with me slipping away. He chooses not to spend any longer waiting for an answer that will not come. The guide faces his back to us once more. He acts without a word, but I know he isn't satisfied. Our small group shares anxiety-ridden looks as the guide moves ahead. I look down at my lantern. The crack seems larger than ever. I feel as though I am cracking with it. There is nothing I could do to fix it should it go out for good.
We need to keep going. We shouldn't speak of this.
I can feel that they're apprehensive over this situation, and undoubtedly they're curious as to how it happened in the first place. However, this is not the time. I don't want to draw attention to this for fear of the guide catching on. The chattering of the Nixie bubbles up out of the darkness and I gulp harshly. The thought crosses my mind that they too have noticed what just transpired. We walk for quite a bit longer. The voices whispering amongst each other has died down, but the squishing and clicking of prowlers has replaced them. It's difficult to trace the exact origin of the sound. All I know is that it's far too close for comfort. The guide stops abruptly, bringing us to an awkward halt. Luckily, there are no impacts between the three of us.
Stay where you are.
Okay. My eyes are drawn to the guide. He's making small movements, cautiously pressing his foot into the boards in front of him at different spots. Could something be wrong with the bridge itself? My theory is proven correct almost immediately.
Boards ahead are unstable. They may break when stepped on.
Is there another path?
This is our path. Move slowly and do not have two people on the same board at a time. I will cross first. When I find a stable section, I will inform you. Then you will follow my lead.
Okay, fine. He doesn't allow us time to answer before darting forward. His steps are light, but beneath him the wood creaks loudly.
Why are the bridges this way? They can be burned into ash and will still rise the next nightfall. And yet this spot is less stable than the rest. It is strange.
The unnatural black water has a great deal of magic within. That is the most reasonable source of the bridges. If this maze is formed without an intelligent creator, that would explain its treacherous nature.
Lou doesn't say anything on the topic, merely staring ahead. The guide breaks his cautious steps, testing the security of the bridge.
Where I am now is solid. You only need to reach this position.
We'll be right there.
I face the others.
To ensure that there is enough light for all of us, I will go second. We need to keep enough distance between each other to not break the boards.
Lou elects to lead and starts going forward, inching gingerly across the trembling boards. After there's some distance, I begin to follow, focused on keeping my movement steady. Margaret is the last to leave. The three of us carefully navigate the creaking, soggy wood. We attempt to keep to the guide's path in hopes that the boards will hold. I feel my foot lay heavily on a board. It bends hair-raisingly under me. I wince as I slowly step off of it. I wonder if we should be crawling on all fours to spread our weight over a wider space, but that may make us vulnerable to those creatures. My focus is broken when I hear a shout from ahead. Lou's foot has snapped through the bridge. We have to pull him back. Maybe I shouldn't have done that actually, yeah. I instinctively rush forward, but the abrupt movement and added weight causes the board to splinter completely. We died. I hit the cold water like a slap, smacking my head on a falling chunk of wood. All I can do is try to swing back to the surface despite the thick hold of water and growing fog in my mind. Before I can reach it, I feel something latch onto my legs with a grip like an iron manacle. I struggled to kick the weight off, flailing my legs desperately as my air supply dwindles. It only tightens its grip so much I can feel my ankle bones caving in. It drags me farther away from the upper world of air, light, and life. I can feel more clawed hands grab me, and with an icy turning of my insides, I realize that it's already too late for me. Despite this, I struggle and thrash about as much as my burning lungs will let me, so that if he fell into the water too, I can at least keep the monsters busy with me. This last sense of purpose keeps me fixated, even as my senses get fuzzy. I'm dragged lower and lower with a vague smile on my face until the darkness completely overtakes me. Panic. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to load from here
We'll toss the branch when we
and
get
then skip everything. Oh wait, now. Okay, don't do anything. Despite every cell in me screaming to help, I force myself not to make any sudden movements. Lou lifts his foot up from the cusp of the water and places it back on the board in front of him. Thank goodness, the entire section could have collapsed. Margaret looks at us, clearly concerned.
A part of the board broke. Everyone is fine, however. You should avoid that section completely.
All right.
We're still in much danger as we stand here. I encourage him to begin moving once more. I make sure to skip over the broken board myself when I come to it. As I pass by the hole, I catch a bit of movement in the water, but when I look closely, there's nothing there. After a few more agonizing minutes, everyone reaches the other side of that trap. Each of us three mutter various expressions of relief. There isn't a word from our guide. We continue our journey across the bridges, sharing small, sporadic bits of conversation, until we're plunged into darkness. I need to cough. Okay. I immediately come to a screeching halt that almost makes the two near me lose their footing. I look down at my lantern. It's as dark as the water. The three of us stare at it, silently pleading. A few moments pass, and yet the lantern remains cold and lifeless. In desperation, I jiggle the lantern, hoping that somehow something will click and the light will return. Nothing happens. I feel the others' nerves climbing with every second. They shift uncomfortably as they watch me pathetically attempt to relight it. We are quiet, still hoping that the guide won't notice. I cease shaking and tap at the sides of the cracked glass. When that doesn't yield any results, I open the lantern itself and look over the internal workings. I cannot reach inside. Despite its appearance, the metal has retained the heat from before, and I would be burned. As the darkness stretches on, I frantically try to figure out what the problem is from sight alone, to no avail.
Your light is gone.
Yep. The indifferent tone of the speaker is unmistakable. No, not yet. I look up from my work to see that the guide is approaching us. I'm at a loss for words. He comes near, and the edges of his light shelter us like a blanket.
Relight it.
My hands begin to tremble. I know that it won't do anything, but I do as demanded and hope for a miracle. I attempt to get the inner core to catch flame, but the lantern refuses to comply no matter what I do. The guide's eyes widen as the full scope of the situation dawns on him. My two companions start nervously fidgeting and whisper about possible solutions, but I hear each one getting shot down.
What are we going to do now?
Margaret's voice comes out shaky. I look at the guide forlornly. We're completely at his mercy now, if he has any to spare at all. He coldly surveys the three of us. After silently deliberating, he narrows his eyes until they're slits in his face.
I will allow one of you to remain in my light.
One?
Why?
I can barely drag the words out of my mouth as I look at him incredulously.
Someone who wants to live will share their light with no one. I will not share my light with three.
He almost snarls at us. Margaret is completely frozen, her mind racing to process everything.
Then, what about two? Could you please keep two of us safe?
The guide sharply shakes his head.
I will allow one and no more. Two will be left behind.
A finality rings out from his words.
Lingering at a distance far behind my light will leave you vulnerable. The wisest option is to continuously move, even if it means going another way.
Beside me, Margaret begins to whisper something to herself. I can't make out what it is. Lou's eyes narrow as he observes the situation. A torrent of thoughts rip through my mind as I try to find some other way.
Chica.
My body stiffens. The guide has never referred to me by name this way. It is jarring enough to gain my attention, even amidst the panic rising.
You are the most likely to survive. The offer is for you.
My eyes widen even further. No, I don't want that. I can't be the only one who... No. I turn my eyes to my two companions. The both of them gaze back at me, dejected. There is horrifying resignation in their eyes. This cannot be happening. They should be going, not me. They should be the ones who remain safe.
My lantern broke because I foolishly dropped it. And I've already lost my glasses, so...
Lou continues to only passively watch with an unexplainable expression. I shake my head, refusing to watch them give up so easily. I turn to the guide's face one last time, begging him mentally. He is empty and unflinching.
It needs to be done. This is what it means to cross Sinnlos.
The heavy words sink into me as I stare towards the void that eagerly awaits the two of us. The guide sucks in a breath, clearly disappointed.
Being without light is dangerous, even if you are close to another. The one who goes with me has no guarantee of making it across. You risk this entire journey being for naught. The correct decisions need to be made. Everyone should be aware.
The one who goes with me has no guarantee of making it across. How does that make sense? His words cut deep. I have no logical reason to object to going if my only solution is choosing another for the same position. I thought I would be ready for this when it presented itself. I believed I had the strength. That was only what I wanted to believe. Noting that I haven't said anything despite plenty of opportunity, the guide continues.
I will not choose someone else, and neither will they. Can you do so? Who deserves to be saved, and who lost in your mind?
A pit forms in my stomach as the responsibility of this unspeakable choice falls on my shoulders.
Stop this! It isn't helping!
I'm not the one who can stop it now.
I try to form a coherent sentence, but whenever I try to wrench them out, the words vanish from my tongue. Having lost his patience, the guide points a finger at Lou almost accusingly.
I've noticed the attention you've given him.
Oh, he's
Is that what this is
noticed,
about?
has he?
Do you want to sacrifice your position to give him a hope of safety? Or perhaps you would prefer the both of you being left so you remain together? Or does your relationship not matter after all, and you don't care who gets the chance as long as you avoid a sense of guilt?
I look over at Margaret and Lou, hot tears flowing from my eyes. Bruh, I don't know. Let me save it though.
You have to take the other one, guide.
Take Lou. You have to take the other one, guide. He speaks with no hesitation and everyone stares at him. Surprisingly, the attention doesn't seem to bother Lou this time. He seems completely calm.
Kika doesn't want to go, and I don't need you.
The guide audibly gasps at Lou's declaration. He doesn't speak either, not from his usual indifference, but because he's completely at a loss for words. Lou shrugs off the reaction, continuing on with a derisive tone.
You have your needed answer. There's only one person you can take. I hope that you'll be able to prove your keep by getting at least someone across.
The guide's face contorts awkwardly. However, I don't get an impression of anger. Instead, it's almost as though Lou's words have struck a sensitive spot. Without another word, he turns around and begins to walk down the bridge.
You have to go. He will take you.
Yeah, just go, Margaret, okay? Either one of you is completely fine to go with me. I look over to see Lou encouraging Margaret to leave. Lou is nearly ready to start pushing her towards the guide.
Why would you do that?
She peers at us, vexed.
Because it felt right.
I chime in and Lou smiles approvingly. Margaret's eyes fill with tears and she scrunches her nose up.
Well, you're wrong. I hope you realize.
I shake my head.
The decision has been made. You need to go. We will find our own way.
Margaret wipes the tears from her eyes. She fixates on me penetratingly, and I know that she doesn't truly believe me. I mirror her look with equal gravity.
Be safe, please. There isn't time left.
Renewed tears pour down Margaret's face, dripping in a subtle rhythm onto the already damp wood. She opens her mouth and begins to say something. However, it catches in her throat. She doesn't want to say goodbye. I don't either. She looks down and her voice drops to a whisper.
Thank you both for everything.
You're welcome, love. She then turns around, trying to catch up with the guide. It was almost unbearable seeing her so hurt. She didn't want to sacrifice someone else for her own safety as much as I didn't. However, I still hold to my decision. Yet I cannot help but wonder what Lou is thinking. By now, that feeling has become familiar to me. Even so, this seems unexpected. We both stand alone, consumed by a creeping darkness. I stare quietly at Lou for a good chunk of time. He laughs nervously under my gaze and his eyes dart away.
Please don't look at me that way. I meant what I said. Besides, you promised to let me do what I needed to do. That was it, I'm sure.
I watch him for a second longer before releasing a pent-up sigh. I can't say he's wrong. Lou is stronger than most give him credit for. Lou nonchalantly stretches his arms out, his elbows popping with the motion.
We probably should start running now.
I look down, my fists tightening in contemplation. I can't let concern slow us down. I need to get him to the other side. I steel my determination. The two of us dash forward and take another branching path out of the bridges. We continue to race across Sinnlos, bridge after bridge. Many glossy arms reach up from the lake over the sides of the bridge towards our ankles. Luckily, we're able to pass by each one before any can grab a hold. There are moments here and there where Lou seems like he's going to stumble and fall. However, he manages to keep himself upright each time and continues forward. Our confidence is shattered as we turn down another path and are forced to come to a halt. In the distance, we see it, a mass of slow-moving figures creeping our way. I narrow my eyes.
Prowlers.
I turn behind me, only to see more Nixie as they begin to rise up from the waters. They stretch their crooked limbs across the boards. Droplets of cold sweat begin to run down my back. There is no clear path any longer. Even if we light a match to set a side of the bridge on fire, it's possible that not all of them will leave, and then we'd be trapped by both flames and monsters. It would also put the others at risk if the flames spread to them. I slowly slide my hand down to my side and reach for the hilt of my sword. I leave behind the broken lantern. That won't do anything for us now.
Stay close. I can at least clear the way we came so we can keep going.
And we will keep going in the next video. I will see you then. Bye!